Hey, welcome to another episode of Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey, editor-at-large at Mississippi Today. I don't really know how to define our guest today. He's a Renaissance man. He plays guitar. He's a rock and roll star. He's an alderman. He stepped his foot back into politics after being mayor of Columbus back 20 years ago. You got elected on that one. But also, too, he is works with the Mississippi State Center for Entrepreneurship and Outreach. Is that right? No,
that's it. Yeah, Your Honor. Keep going.
Very good. No, that's great.
This would be great.
Yeah, I was doing really well, and then suddenly my brain ran out of bandwidth, and I just went bleh. But no, it was that, and to remind our viewers, we have interviewed a couple of products from that center. A couple of graduates, I guess, would be a better term. Products would be like things. People are graduates, but actually they are tearing things up in the middle of downtown Starkville right now, doing great work with the company Glow. Of course, you remember Hagen Walker and Anna Parker on too. So we'll talk a little bit about them as well. But we've got Mr. Jeffrey Rupp on with us today. And by the way, congratulations for being back in politics. I know that's a lot of fun.
Oh, you can't imagine. I mean, you can't imagine how much fun it is. My wife thought I was crazy. I've got two teenage daughters. One is a sophomore here at State. One's a sophomore at Starkville High. And as corny as it sounds, I still believe public service is a worthwhile endeavor. And there was the opportunity there to do what I love here at the East Center and serve Starkville. I think Starkville is a city on the move. Yeah. And so if I can contribute to that, it is worth the occasional irate calls from my constituents.
I've talked with several of my friends who are mayors. In fact, a guy I played football with is mayor over in Georgia. And he said that is probably the most 24/7 job you can possibly have, is working with city government or being elected on the city level. Because really, honestly, that's the government that's as close to the voter as, because we love to get online and talk about the president and stuff. But really, honestly, what you're doing day in and day out affects more people in their daily lives than the president, unless they decide to nuke us or something. But at the end of the day, which I hope you don't have that power in Starkville, but y'all have got a lot of good things going on in Starkville. You've had some Lynn's a great mayor. She's done a great job. And you've just, between that, and then also too, the Eastner itself is bringing a lot of growth into the downtown area, which I've always, bookmarked, Carolyn there in downtown. I've always come over there for book signings. I've always loved to come to downtown, and it's been fun watching it develop, but it's really in the last, 5-6 years has just taken off.
Well, I think the university and the community have finally gotten on the same page. You could have come to Starkville 10 years ago and had some folks down at the local cafe tell you that the university ruined a perfectly good dairy town. And then the flip side of that is you would have folks from the university go down to that same cafe and just sort of tell everybody what they were doing wrong.
Yeah. Because
they were the brainiacs. And I think we have finally harnessed all the goodness of the university and the goodness of the community, and Starkville is blowing and going, and it's fun to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I think it's good too now that people understand that universities are an economic engine outside of football. Which I'm all about football. Don't get me wrong. I say if we're winning, I want every team to win because it makes Mississippi a better place. But yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, the amount of research and the things that y'all are doing there, it's unreal that, there's 25-year-olds now that are on their ways of becoming millionaires because they've created products that are incredible.
Yeah, well, they are millionaires. I mean, our East Center has over 100 student startups right now, and the portfolio is worth over $21 million. Wow. And Eric Hill deserves all the credit. He's the director of the center, and an engineering grad who's on his fourth startup. These guys are serial entrepreneurs, and he knew how to do it. And he has a secret sauce, and we're sharing that playbook with universities, not just in Mississippi, but all around the South. So he deserves a shout out. But the trick, Marshall, is getting them to stay in Mississippi. And I hate to say it, but I think there were some that were in denial that brain drain was even a real thing.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's the case in my discussions with Philip Gunn and Delbert Hoseman. And I think it's critical that we fight to keep those folks here, and you can see the impact they have in a community. You talk about Glow.
Yeah.
It's not just the fact that they are making a cool product, but they were going to leave Mississippi. They chose to stay. We took an old building, an old abandoned theater on Main Street in downtown Starkville, brought it back to life with a cool theater sign. There's 20 some young people working there. Oh, now there's a gelato shop right in the middle, right at the storefront. And it's helped reinvigorate downtown. So it's not just economic development, it's community development. But we got to keep those folks here, and we got to give them a reason to stay here.
Yeah, Anna and Hagan both said that they'd looked in Atlanta, they looked in Chattanooga, they looked in Birmingham, they looked all around it, but they decided at the end of the day they wanted to make a difference back in their home state.
And it is a difference. Hagan's just rolling off as the local Main Street president, right? So he's usually some old fuddy-duddy, and now you've got Hagan with all these great ideas, all this youthful energy, and you can actually feel it downtown. That's not an overstatement. And he's one of just $4 million startups we have in the downtown area. And, so that's our part, right? We're not what we do. It's not the big industrial recruitment, and we're not chasing smokestacks. I call this boutique economic development. But these are the future Rotarians, the future leaders of the community. And so I think this is an important ingredient when you look at the holistic process of economic and community development.
Let me ask you about the brain drain question, because like I said, I've seen it just working through Mississippi Today and working through the Clarion Ledger before that. There was pushback from several politicians about it. I never really understood that. It wasn't a slam on them. It wasn't saying Mississippi's a bad place. It's just saying, oh yeah, by the way, we got a fire here. We need to put it out. What do you think was really honestly the cause of any pushback at all on that?
I wish I knew the answer. What sticks in my mind, though, is a couple of years ago, right before COVID hit, I was at the Economic Development Conference that the universities put on. And I remember a representative from the administration at that time getting up in front of the group and saying brain drain doesn't exist.
Wow.
And before that gentleman was finished speaking, Matthew McLaughlin, who's a real champion of particularly craft beer, but also entrepreneurship in the state, was on the panel behind the speaker, was already tweeting out, they don't get it. They don't get it. And that, I would say, was an accurate reflection of how young startups and entrepreneurs felt in the state, that the state didn't get it. But unfortunately, I think that's changing with Philip Gunn and with Delbert. But I think the state flag had something to do with it, mostly because it represented that old school thought. And I know from the students that come in and out of the East Center that, while the flag wasn't, something they were necessarily going to run up and down the drill field protesting, it just stuck in their craw a bit. Yeah. Why can't we move past this, right?
You and I both have kids the same age, and it's for me, brain drain represents the fact that I want my wife to be able to easily see her grandkids when that time comes. I don't want to get an airplane to go see my kids, and that sort of thing. And at my age, I always said that when I first started drawing cartoons in Mississippi, I did it because I was a cartoonist and that was my job. When I started having kids, I wanted Mississippi to be a better place. And I think now that's why this whole conversation that we're having today excites me, because I'm excited to see these little pockets starting to pop up around the state where there's entrepreneurs that are coming in and they're starting to develop jobs from the ground up.
Well, and one nice thing about us being last on just about every list out there is that you can actually do things that are impactful, right? Yeah. It's not this state with just 100 or 20 million people. The bar is so low that everybody has a chance to limbo in Mississippi, if I could say that. But you can do things that are going to make a difference. So what we're doing can be replicated in other communities, and we are in the process of trying to figure out how to do that. But those things will build on each other, right? Yeah. And we can look back and say, wow, look how far we've come, and let's build on that. So being in Mississippi has so many disadvantages, but those disadvantages are almost an advantage in some cases. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. And I tell you what our secret sauce is, what our superpower is here. We have sense of place and home going for us, if that makes sense. The fact that, if you go into a Starkville in downtown, or you go into an Oxford, or if you went to college in Hattiesburg or whatever, or if you're in Natchez and you're Tate Taylor, you can build a film empire because technology's gotten to the point now where you can do what you need to do anywhere in the country. I mean, you and I are having a conversation. You're in Starkville. I'm sitting in my kitchen, but I have fiber, and I've got Zoom, and so we can do things now today that we couldn't really do 20 years ago, and being able to build these startups.
Yeah, and I think that's been part of the disconnect with perhaps some of the more recent leadership in the past is not understanding that young people, and I feel old using the term, but they can work, and they will work where they want and work how they want.
Yes.
So they want to be where things are happening. We used to make our startups go out to our research park, which is a fancy way of saying office buildings in the middle of a pasture, right? And it's a nice place, but it's not where most young people want to be. They got the laptop in a messenger bag on their bike, or they're walking. They want to work at the coffee shop. They want to work in a co-work space. They want to work at a bar, and they can. And they're not going to work 8 to 5. And if they're downtown, they can always find a place to hole up and do their work and kind of be social at the same time. We always will have to adjust to the next generation because they're going to be running things, right? And if we're insistent on this 8 to 5, you're going to be in this cubby, we are the ones going to be left behind, not them. They're going to do it the way they want to do it.
Yeah, pandemic's blowing that up too. I mean, I just, it's like, I'm not even sure I have any long pants that fit anymore.
Well, you've grown 4 inches since the pandemic. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I have. And that's not just from my back surgery where I'm taller now, so, but yeah, no, I've expanded my my worldview. That's it. That's what I expanded. Jeffrey, let's talk about you for a half second here a little bit. You've had an interesting career. You started out, did you start in the media? I mean, you were with WCBI, you were working through television and doing that. Then you became a mayor, in Columbus, and suddenly jumped into that. Tell us a little about it, because you've kind of done a little bit of everything.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. At one point, I had the distinction of having holding the 3 least respected occupations, probably in America. I was fake news.
Yes. Right? Yeah, congratulations.
I was an elected official. So, how much they're loved. And then I was actually doing TV ads for a buddy of mine who owned a car dealership. So I was selling cars. So car salesman, politician, and fake news. I pretty much had the trifecta there.
You still have time to squeeze in law school.
That's good. That's good. Quick background, I'm from Pennsylvania, did my undergrad at Temple University, majored in radio, television, and film. I have one film to my credit. It's on the sensitivity of tarantulas. All through college, I played music. I had a guy come hear our band, wanted to make us the next Springsteen. Keep in mind, I was in Philly, Jersey, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So my parents were educators, but actually encouraged me to drop out of college and pursue that for a couple of years. A great, great learning experience, 2 years of just gigging and traveling, and days before cell phone cameras. Thank you.
Yeah.
Went back to school, took the first TV job I was offered. It was at the NBC affiliate out of Tupelo, ended up at CBI, grew within their company and was VP of news for the group they had, which included the WMUR in Manchester, New Hampshire, only TV station in the state, nation's first primary. I used to facilitate the presidential debates every 4 years. Great learning experience, got me interested in politics. I end up as mayor of Columbus, ran against Delbert for Secretary of State, and got beat by Delbert, and he did a great job as Secretary of State.
If you had just put an old lady on a bench, you would have had a chance.
It was a great ad. Look, my hats off. Perfect ad at the perfect time.
That's what I've ever seen. So, yeah.
It was a really, it was a really a good campaign. We'd travel around together, and he'd end up giving my stump speech. I'd be showing pictures of his kids. And he worked hard, had a good network, and deserved to win that race. So no hard feelings there. And it was good for me because then I end up here in the e-center at State. And I think I had the best job in the world. I don't have to be the smart guy. I wait for kids to walk in with ideas and work with Eric Hill, and we try to bring those ideas to life. And when it happens and you see a 20-some-year-old kid get an angel investment that makes his company $1 million company on paper, and he's staying in Mississippi and going back to his hometown, it's wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's funny whenever I read about the students come through there, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Shark Tank. It's kind of, you kind of get.
Well, Marshall, we have a monthly Shark Tank. The kids can get up $7,500 if you're ever in the neighborhood when we have it. It is so much fun watching these kids get up and pitch for not millions but thousands of dollars. And man, these kids are smart. You hear a lot about how lazy this generation is, or Gen X, millennials, whatever we are now.
Yeah.
The kids that come through the e-center carrying a full load, many of them have part-time jobs. Oh, and they're starting a business on the side.
Yeah.
These kids got it going on, and they're from Mississippi, and we'll put them up against anybody anywhere.
I was looking at your curriculum. I mean, I'm kind of halfway through my master's getting entrepreneurial journalism. Okay. So that's what it is. Definitely a different structure than what y'all are doing. I really, and this is just coming from being in the journalism business, it completely has been blown up and it's totally changed and everything else. Yeah. And it's like what you're teaching the students is so good. I mean, it just gives them some really good skills because they could get eaten alive very quickly the second they graduate. Anybody can say they're an entrepreneur until about a week into it when they realize, oh, this isn't a 9-to-5 job.
Well, what's important is for them to fail early and fail often.
Yes.
Right? College is the time to do this. And one thing we stress, we've got, really smart professors here, and they can teach you the theory of making a payroll.
Yeah.
That pales in comparison to starting a business and having to make a payroll and not having the money. I mean, there's an educational lesson in there that you just are not going to get out of a textbook. So what we're trying to do is based on the experience itself versus the theory of it. And you need the theory. And we have refined this program to the point, there's a federal agency, and we got an email from a guy who runs it because he was a Mississippian, telling us we needed to go to this university in Alabama and look what they were doing in entrepreneurship because it was the most spectacular thing he'd ever seen. And I had to write him back and say, yeah, they were here 2 months ago, and that's our playbook. So I think what we're doing at State, number one, we'll share with anyone, but I think is as good as anything that's being done out there.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you for this, is because, I mean, honestly, I feel like more Mississippians need to know about what y'all are doing up there because you're real. And like I said, it's spilling over into the community and making a difference and spilling over into the state too. So it's not just like you're just a little pocket school up there that's producing graduates that are leaving and going away. I mean, they're making a difference.
Well, to that point, two things. One, we also work with external clients who aren't students. Now, I can't, they don't have all the resources, particularly the funding resources that we can make available to students. But I take teams of MBA students, about 25 or 30 of them a year, and they spend a semester with companies as big as C-Spire and Yokohama, but also mom and pops on Main Street.
Oh, wow.
And try to figure out how to grow and their businesses. Social media marketing is second nature to college kids and high school kids now.
Yeah.
But it's not to a lot of the old mom and pops that have a brick and mortar on Main Street, and yet there are opportunities for them outside of the city limits. So we work with them and try to help them. The second thing is we help the Mississippi School for Math and Science do their annual Shark Tank. And that is amazing to see what those kids come up with business-wise. So we're doing Shark Tanks in the schools. We're doing them with the math and science school. And we're trying to help anybody around the state.
Well, I think about Hagen. Hagen had this idea for a closed circuit that when it got wet, that it lit up, right? That's brilliant. Yeah. And you think about how many engineering students probably come through Mississippi State that have that little golden kernel of an idea, and then they go work for a company and maybe never ever think of that idea again or never do anything with it. And this is a chance now. I mean, like I said, what Hagen and Anna are doing are fantastic, but they may not have ever had that chance if the E-Center didn't exist.
Well, you're right. And to be completely candid, Hagen, I think might have been one of the first MSU students to intern out at Tesla Motors.
Yeah.
And he came back from that experience. They had offered him a full-time job, and he turned it down to come back. And he walked in the E-Center and said, "I want to make this cube that lights up in the circuitry in the water." And we were thinking, Tesla Motors? But it's our job to encourage the dream. And so look where that got him.
But I think also too, and I think it's something that they learn when you're saying fail and fail often, which is something that's totally counter programming to what you and I probably learned when we were growing up. Although your parents said go into the music business, so you obviously had very cool parents. But
they weren't crazy about it.
Huh?
I mean, my dad was a teacher. My grandmother, 2 aunts and uncles were all public school educators, so they weren't crazy. It wasn't like, yeah, Jeff, out of college. But at the end of the day, they supported it.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I told my dad I want to be an editorial cartoonist, and he said, "Aren't there more NBA basketball players?" He said, "But that's okay." He said, "You're good at it. Go, do it." But he made me go get a marketing degree.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Yeah, that's great. You already know how to draw, but you need to know how to sell yourself." And that was, but I mean, I think about going back to Hagen again and Anna both. They literally created this really cool novelty thing that goes in drinks at parties, and that's great. And suddenly they get an email from a mom who says, "My autistic child is soothed by your product." And then they could have said, "Well, that's very nice. Have a nice day." But they were like, ding, the light bulb went off, and they've been able to, now obviously Julia has come to fruition for them. That is so.
There's Julia.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Well, and so the backstory, if folks don't know, this is the original glow cube. All right, so this is the cube that you put in water that lights up, and you see the little batteries in there. And I'm trying to get it in focus. And
you're doing remarkably well. Yeah, all things considered.
So this was the original, and Caesar's Palace casinos on the coast were branding these, put the logo on, handing them out, and they were having some success. And then, like you said, they got that letter from the mom, and they decided to put those cubes in the back of Sesame Street characters, and we end up with Julia, who is the first, I believe, autistic Sesame Street character.
Yeah.
And there's the cube, and you put the cube in the back, and you put this in water, and it is a fun sensory experience for the kid. This is located on Main Street in downtown Starkville, Mississippi. That's a great story.
And I love love how they were able to take that space and convert it so they can do inventory there and everything. I mean, it's just it was the Rex Theater, right?
Yeah, and it truly brought it back to life. It's a block from City Hall, a block from the county courthouse, and it had been empty for 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, it needs to be mentioned that a strategic partner in that was Mark Castleberry, the developer, who had the vision to go and get historic tax credits and do all that piece. But that's the part of a community working together.
But that's the thing, and I think we touched on that just a hair at the beginning. I mean, if we're going to stop brain drain and we're going to help create entrepreneurship around Mississippi, it's got to be an all hands on deck thing. It's got to be media, it's got to be government, it's got to be the universities, it's got to be the local governments. I mean, it's everybody working together to make all these things happen.
Yeah, and it's critical, though, that the local government and the local business community understand that their customer, meaning young people we're trying to get from leaving, they've got to understand what makes them tick. And we talked about it earlier, where they work, how they work. They've got to not just understand that, but embrace it and make that community, their community, a place that really embraces and promotes those things. And that's sometimes a little tough because you still have the old guard that, well, that's not how we did it, and we've always done it this way. And it shouldn't be a threat because it's not either or, it's either and, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm the first to understand the old guard's thinking in the sense that, over that direction is the Nissan plant, over that direction is the new Amazon center. I mean, obviously the big, hey, let's throw a bunch of, tax money at it and bring in these companies, bring in the good paying jobs and all. That's important too. But this is something that when you start throwing in companies here and there and there and there, and they start sprouting, I mean, like I said, what they're doing with Glow, and there's some others too. Tell us a little bit about some of the other companies that are on Main Street there.
So Duet Technologies is located in an old barber shop, and it is 3 African Americans, 2 gentlemen, and a young lady, and the one guy cuts hair.
Yeah.
Now, if you look, I am follically challenged, so my expertise in the area of hair is minimal. But apparently, with Latino and African American hair, the hair follicles are thicker. So when you use clippers, they tend to overheat.
Yeah.
This guy is a barber with over 100,000 followers on YouTube, where he shows off his stuff.
Yeah.
He got together with an engineering student at State, and they developed clippers that don't overheat. I think they're using some composite or ceramic materials in them.
Yeah.
And the young lady does the marketing. They came through the E-Center. They got 6-figure funding. They're a $1 million company, and they're located in this old barber shop about a half a block off Main Street in Starkville. They're right now in production with their clippers, and he's got 100,000 potential customers already who tune into him.
Yeah.
Who see his stuff every week. So once they get their inventory in, he should be able to sell their clippers, and off they go. And I know one of the team members is from Atlanta, but again, they chose to stay in Mississippi and in Starkville. And what we were able to do was work with the local government to get them a minority grant to help them pay the rent, because they don't have income right now.
Yeah.
And they've got their investment dollars, but a lot of that's going into production. So the community sort of helped out, and we're subsidizing their rent. They're waiting to launch their product. And it's a great story, and it's a great Mississippi story.
How cool is it they've got an abandoned barbershop too? That's just like really, that's like the cherry on top there.
Yeah, and that was really fun. I actually used to get my haircut there. When the guy said he was moving out to a new location, I thought, well, this would just be perfect for them. So they're in the old Liberty Bell barbershop location.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So I'm a student. I want to. Do you come in as a freshman and go through the center, or do you come in as an upper graduate? Tell us a little bit about that and some of the classes and some of the things that are offered to somebody who wants to go through this program.
Yeah, well, it's important to make the distinction. You can come here and study entrepreneurship. We have a concentration. Eric Hill and I co-teach a couple of entrepreneurship classes, so you can do that. But there is no class requirement for coming in the E-Center. Anybody, any major. In fact, you don't have to be a student if you're affiliated with the university. We have a husband and wife team. She drives one of our transit buses, and he is a custodian. They make the best smoked chicken salad you've ever had in your life. And they wanted to figure out, how do we sell this not just at the farmer's market? Well, there's all kinds of labeling and food safety considerations, and we were able to work with them with our MBA consulting teams and put together a report on here's how you do it. And to the point where we even talked to a local grocery store, would you carry this? Things like that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to take classes. You can just walk in our door, and we'll do the best we can to help you.
What would that cost?
For you today, Marshall, free. There's no charge. Now,
we just did the used car salesman thing. That was good. Yeah. There you go.
If you are not an employee, a professor, or a student, we can't give you the $7,500 startup money. So we'll give anyone that walks in the door, we'll stair step them, and they have to go through little pitches and Shark Tanks like we talked about.
Yeah.
To get up to $7,500.
Okay.
The best of those, we now have our own angel network that can invest 6-figure sums and get some equity. There's 30 or 40 members of that angel network.
Yeah.
And it's just Mississippi State deals. We've got guys on Wall Street who don't have any affiliation with Mississippi State that like the deals, right?
Yeah.
And so that is, we're very, very proud. That's a huge piece of the puzzle there.
it's just such a great conduit, from to be able to harness the power of the university, to be able to get it out into the state, to be able to, without there having to be, entrepreneurship. You talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and they're like, how can you teach entrepreneurship? But this is how you do it. Like you said, you're getting out there and you're doing it and on that. But like I said, this is such a great way to be able to get, I'm at a loss of words for the first time in my life.
Yeah, well, we usually start our class and our when we talk with entrepreneurs who walk in and remind them of there's a guy named Bill Allett who's one of the godfathers of entrepreneurship. He's up at MIT, which has a great program, and he said an entrepreneur needs to be one part Navy SEAL, which is precision, focused on the mission, and one part pirate, right?
Yeah.
And that pirate has to be a little bit of swim outside of your lane, color outside the lines. And then you have to find that balance. So here at the E-Center, we encourage that. So it's a unique space. It's like nothing else on campus. It's all glass. The walls are glass. You write on the walls with fluorescent markers. And then sometimes we do crazy stuff and color outside the lines. And I can tell how mad the dean is when she comes to see us when we've gotten in trouble we have concrete floors, how loud her shoes are on the floor when she's walking to my office. Where is he? Bang, 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 bang. So we sort of have to juggle that, but it's a very non-traditional exercise for academia.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said, the thing that I was just so impressed with the program and what you're doing is, I'm a right brain guy. It's easy to be creative, but it's hard to be creative and then also do accounting and do a payroll and cut through red tape and all that. And then, like I said, what y'all do is you help the entrepreneur to be able to figure out the hard stuff too, and to be able to get through that.
One of the hardest things, Marshall, is we got the majority of the students that come in are usually tethered to engineering.
Yeah.
And we get this sometimes with our faculty startup. The fact that you have a great idea, be it a glow cube or whatnot, does not make you the best CEO of the company. It does not make you the best marketing person in the company. So you have to recognize, just like in sports, you need a good team of people who are good at stuff you're not good at.
Yeah.
You might be great at fielding baseball, but you can't pitch to save your life. You've got to surround yourself with a team that is strong where you're weak. So we have to stress that a lot.
You're mayor of Columbus, and you've got good reviews. I've read several articles saying you were turning things around and everything else. You were in your second term, and you get a call from Doc Fogelsong to come to Mississippi State. What made you decide to make the move?
So I was at the Kennedy School of Government at the time up at Harvard for a summer session where they had elected officials from all over the world, literally there for 3 or 4 weeks. And I got a call from Doc, and he said, I need you at State. He had been the wing commander in Columbus when I was at the TV station, so I got to know him there. And then when I was mayor, he was incredibly helpful. He loved Columbus. And I remember we were going through base closure, and there was no visible identity that Columbus was an Air Force base town because the air base was 6 miles out of town. And I wanted to put up a static jet at the intersection of 82 and 45, so folks would know it was important. It was one of the boxes you check in base closure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't want to use public funds. I got the land from the state. MDOT begrudgingly let me put it where I wanted to put it, and I got the concrete donated, the pedestal steel donated. And then the Air Force said I had to go all the way out to New Mexico or Arizona to the boneyard where they put all the old retired planes. And to do that would have cost a huge amount of money to ship it back. And so Doc called me one day and said, "How's it going in Columbus?" I said, "Great, but I'm frustrated with the Air Force." And I told him I needed a jet and this was important. He said, "I'll call you back." And later that afternoon, he said, "Go out to the base and pick one out." So we got our jet from the base. We put it up. And just working closely with him through base closure when he was at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Anyway, I say all that to say he called and said, I want you in my office. We're going to do great things. And I know he was controversial, but he was also a transformational leader. And I thought, boy, I could be a part of this. I didn't know what to do. I turned him down. He called again. We used it as a case study at the Kennedy School. I called Governor Barber, and he said, you can do more people for more Mississippians at Mississippi State than in Columbus. And so he gave me some cover and issued a statement. I was in my second term. Some folks were unhappy that I left, and they have every right to be. It was not an easy decision.
Yeah.
And that's basically how it played out.
You had young kids too at that time too, so it was
Yeah, I did, but as Columbus was and still is sort of a riverboat town. It has that personality, and it's kind of a smash mouth, in your face political town.
Yeah.
The work I did there was some of the most rewarding work I've ever done. I was not looking for an exit. It was stressful. I got a death threat in the Christmas parade one year with towing my little girl in a red wagon, but that was Columbus, right?
Okay, back that up a little bit here. You got a death threat. Was it from the Santa Claus, or who was it from?
My wife. No.
Okay.
So Columbus had a lot of problems with its police department.
Yeah.
And we had some unsolved murders. CBS News came down and did a 48-hour special on Columbus, and it was the whole show.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember that.
And so when I became mayor, I realized we had to change the good old boy way we had done it. The chief, when I came in, didn't even have a high school diploma. He had a GED.
Yeah.
And he was one of the, his way of law enforcement, his view was the Billy Club, and that's how we do it. And I felt we needed to professionalize the police department. So we brought in an outside law enforcement audit firm from Texas. And it was kind of embarrassing, all the things they uncovered. And the community thought we were going to hide the results. And I took the top 10 recommendations, put them on an easel, and put them on the steps of City Hall, and said, this is what we've got to change.
Wow.
Okay, so at any rate, so we go through this big process of trying to get a new chief, and it was very contentious. There were some political implications, some racial implications. So now we're in the Christmas parade. Got my 1-year-old daughter in the back of the wagon, and I'm waving at folks, and I yelled, "Merry Christmas" to somebody, and he yelled, "You better enjoy Christmas. You ain't going to make it to New Year's. You ain't going to live to New Year's." And I'm like, here we go.
Wow.
Anyway.
Ho, ho, ho. Yeah.
Yeah, I really just thought, couldn't you come to my office and fuss at me when I'm not towing my daughter in a wagon at the Christmas parade? But hey, it is what it is. You sign up for it.
You're still here, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, you don't see the Secret Service protection just off to my left.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's just from being an alderman now. So I was going to.
And to be honest, it's not Secret Service. It's a couple of Cub Scouts with a slingshot. But still, I'll take what I can get.
They can put an eye out. They're pretty dangerous. So, I mean, seriously, okay. So you've been mayor and now you're alderman. I mean, talk about the difference in you on how you approach government now and your leadership style from 2000 to 2021 or 2001 to 2000.
Yeah, well, when I was elected, though I'd covered politics a lot, I didn't have real political experience, so I was a little naive.
Yeah.
I was very well-intentioned and thought that other people believe that you just try to do the right thing, but politics obviously isn't always like that. So I was very sincere and worked very hard when I was mayor, but I think I'm much smarter now. Since I got the state, I got my master's in public policy and administration, and I'm older, so I'm a little more relaxed, and it doesn't have to be done overnight. It's a process. Politics is the art of the possible. One thing I have to remember serving on the board of aldermen is I am not the mayor, and Mayor Spruill reminds me I'm not the mayor. And my job is to be part of the legislative body. We've got a great group of aldermen and do things that support the mayor when we agree, which is most of the time.
Yeah. And
then listen to my constituents in my ward and try to move the city forward. The good news is there's so much positive energy in Starkville right now that, again, the bar's so low, we just don't have to mess it up. We have to plan for the future. You talk about your kids. I want my daughters to either live here or to always want to come back here.
Yeah.
We've got to create that sense of place that is attractive to them, not just as old guys.
It really are in a kind of a Pax Romana right now, because you've got really good leadership at the university level and good leadership in the local level too. And you said that you all talk to each other, which is great.
We do. And there was a time I tried to do an annexation before I left Columbus, and the folks in the county pushed back, and I had a meeting with them, and they asked why it was so important to annex, and I told them that one day I got a call from a tier 3 automotive supplier that wanted to be in the Golden Triangle because of the proximity to Nissan, Toyota, Mercedes, and he said, "You're the first guy I called, the first mayor I called." And I asked him, I said, "Why'd you call me first?" And he said, "You're the biggest dot on the map."
Wow.
And now Starkville is the biggest dot on the map.
Yeah.
And it matters, and you can feel the momentum. So again, I think we need to continue to make smart decisions and to continue to grow.
Circle back to brain drain for a half second here. Since you have worn, media hat, political hat, your university hat, from those 3 different directions, what do we need to be doing on a statewide level? And I mean, not pointing fingers at individuals per se, but just what does the media need to be doing? What do universities need to be doing? What do politicians need to be doing to help obviously reverse this?
I think you're starting to see some of it on the state level with some of the elected officials there, and that's to first just recognize them.
Yeah.
Right. I think when you hide your head in the sand, it doesn't take a lot for teenagers to go, they just don't get it. Yeah. I remember way back when I was a teenager, I felt that way, about your parents or your school teachers or whatnot. Once you feel they don't know, they don't understand you, then you just give up on them. So acknowledge that there's an issue. I think the media needs to celebrate some of those successes more. And I say that Glow has certainly been a media darling. Yeah. But whenever I do a story with the local newspaper or TV stations, I tell them, any day you need a story, when your editor's just busting your chops about, hey, I need some story ideas, I've got you covered. I've got some kid from some town that is in your viewing area or readership area. That's a great story to be telling, and we need to tell those stories.
Yeah, I mean, I want to definitely interview the barber. Yeah. I mean, for this? I mean, this is exactly what this is designed for. That I'm doing for is get those kind of stories out there, and it's so easy. And I can tell you from being in the media for 5.5 million years, sometimes it's easy to go negative on that, but it is, like I said, it is refreshing when you see like what Hagen and Anna have done there too. But like I said, it's just an overall thing. So basically it's a combination of policy and just being able to get the word out.
Yeah. And I'm always going to be an unabashed fanboy and cheerleader for this. I mean, it's what I do when I shoulder roll out of bed every day. But I would tell you, once a week, my wife and I will throw one of our dogs into the car and drive up to the Rex Theater where there's a gelato shop in the evening. And we'll get a pup cup for the dog. And then she and I will sit outside as the sun's going down and have a nice little cup of gelato on Main Street and start, man, that is Americana at its best, right?
You've got a good job. Yeah. I think you've got a pretty darn good job.
Yeah. But we got to create that sense of place.
Yeah.
If kids can live and work wherever they want, we've got to create a sense of place. We're working on a Rails to Trails here in Starkville, and I think it's a perfect fit. But these kids, as you mentioned, they can live anywhere they want. So you got to make them want to live in your town.
When it's always nice too when you've got a university in the town, because a lot of times when you get to be our age, you think back on the golden years back when you were in school and you want to go back. That's why there's so many condos in Oxford, for instance, or they build them. And, that period of winning football that we had when State was number 3 and Ole Miss was number 1. I can't remember if it was vice versa, but
I think we were number 1, Marshall.
But I mean, the economic development in Starkville and in Oxford was just off the charts because it's like everybody wanted to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And folks need to understand that chasing smokestacks is important.
Yeah.
But I reminded Philip Gunn that we gave $600 million to Continental Tires, and that's how you got to play ball these days.
Yeah.
If we had 0.1% of that directed toward entrepreneurship, it would have a huge impact on what we're doing around the state. So, and we don't get any of that, right? I mean, So we need to, again, it's not either or, it could be either and. We've got to, I think on the state level, we've got to fund entrepreneurship more than we're doing now.
Right, right. And I remember, and like you was talking about sense of place in the community. And I remember after Katrina, when they'd sit down and the charrettes or whatever, and they'd sit and talk about, rebuilding the coast this way and the other. And it's a mixed success on that. And, still some other things popped up like they used to be. But it really does now when you can have a small town where you have a great sense of place like that, and you've got fiber and you've got all the things that big companies want too. Yeah. I mean, the tire plant's awesome. Don't get me wrong, but there's not a lot of community out built up around it. So it's kind of cool. Like you said, what Hagen and Ann have done with Glow, what's going on in downtown is great. One last question here, I guess, is that, is your band going through this, program? Are you working on, because Springsteen might retire any day. You could always, fill in for his shoes.
I am so blessed. I play in about 5 different groups. We just did a weekend at the Golden Moon, and I've got 3 gigs this week with different groups of folks. Right? Yeah. I enjoy it now more than I did in college, where I was doing it to meet girls and to, get free beer. Yeah. If anyone finds the hobby, the passion that they love, and gets to do that on a regular basis at a level that is satisfying to them, they are blessed. And for me, to get a couple of shekels afterwards and support my guitar habit, I am the luckiest person in the world, and I get the best job in the world.
So your wife's pretty tolerant of you, heading out and playing the gigs?
Yeah, when we were dating, it was, I'd write songs for her, and she'd come out to the bars, and and I'd sing the song, and that's our song. And we did a music video together a few months ago. She's a great singer, and it's gotten thousands of views, and she's gotten some love on that. But her friends ask her all the time, "Aren't you worried about your husband out there playing?" And at this point, when the sorority girls come up and ask for a brown-eyed girl, they always start their request by saying, "Excuse me, sir." Yeah. If any woman walks up to you, Marshall, and says, "Excuse me, sir," she's not trying to pick you up, if that's how she starts the conversation.
I kind of figured that. Yeah. So I know it was, I taught a course up at Ole Miss. I taught a cartooning class, but it was more about marketing and, it was a whole bunch of legal, there was a whole bunch of things thrown into it. So it was kind of an entrepreneurial class too, in the sense that I wanted my students to realize that there are 5 cartoonists left in the country. If you want to become one, you got to have this whole skill set, right? So, but I mean, it was great. And my students came in and they were all the same age as my children, in which I was like, okay, that's great and everything. But they told me before I started teaching, they said, first thing you do not do is you do not use references from 80s movies. And I was like, but that's the only references I know. I mean, I can quote Animal House. I can quote, Stripes. I could, so it was like, oh, okay. Okay.
Well, that's tough, because there's a great, I think it's Geico, where they're all acting like they're becoming their parents in the commercials. Yeah. And my daughters accuse me of that all the time. Like, I'll use "How's It Going, Eisenhower," which is from Stripes, when John Candy got off the bus, nothing. My kids just stare at me. And my daughter actually works in the East End, and she's all the time just, eye rolling all day.
Well, I was smart enough. I think Amy and I were both smart enough to sit our kids down and make them watch these movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I kind of started them in 60s rock and roll and worked their way up so that they have a broad spectrum of musical tastes. And then my 18-year-old's been helping me, like, he's telling me about Kanye just dropping his album, and Drake, and so forth. So I feel fairly good that I'm 53 and I know who Drake is and, Kanye. And
yeah. So my youngest daughter, who's 16, her boyfriend was over, and I was in the car, and I was playing some of my music, and I'm a big progressive rocker, so I like the band Yes, if you remember that. Yeah. And I was playing Roundabout, and he actually, oh yeah, I know that song. And so he's a member of the family now.
He's a very smart young man.
Yeah, and yeah, probably in several ways.
He probably Googled you before he came over and just.
He probably did. He probably never heard the song, but he's smart.
Jeffrey, is there anything I hadn't touched on? I mean, the nice thing for the audience doesn't realize that you and I will be having this conversation again, probably a little bit more in depth about some things up in Starkville on the Main Street convention that's going to be on Thursday, but this is Sunday if you're watching this, so it actually was a couple days ago. So I have no idea what we're going to talk about in a couple days, but it's actually a couple days the other direction. That's confusing, I know.
Well, I guess closing thing, I want to again give credit to Eric Hill, who has just designed a program here, who's gotten national attention.
It's a brilliant program. Yeah.
Well, and I'm just the eye candy, so he really deserves the credit. And I want to point out to anyone out there who's in the business or economic development, entrepreneurship is not a threat. Let's embrace it. It is not going to encroach on traditional economic development, but it brings something in the way of community development that is hard to quantify, but you know it when you see it. I know it when I walk down Main Street and see the Rex Theater lit up for the first time in decades. It makes me smile.
Do you get the sense, and I get this too, that the pandemic has probably changed our lives more than we even realize at this point?
Yeah, there's no such thing as a fuse anymore. People don't have even a short fuse. It's just bang, the firecracker goes off. But yeah, and I guess in some ways it'll be a plus. We're questioning the work week, how many hours we work, how we work,
right,
versus getting the job done. Instead of punching the clock, it's, hey, here's what I did today. I got all this done.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more than just yelling at random strangers on Facebook. But I mean, I think it's too.
Or at Board of Alderman meetings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, good job on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that had to be fun, So, but has it been like that every time, or just because of that one topic?
No, it's we had some controversy with the scooters in town, but I think that's been ironed out. And I must say that the degree of civility on the board with the board members, even though they're different parties and different outlooks, has been remarkably civil and respectful, and that's the way it ought to be.
That's good, because I know in the past Starkville's had a little bit of friction on the board, so it's kind of good to see that y'all are working. Obviously you're going to disagree at times, but yeah, do not bring up anything about masks or vaccines, or you tend to get all kinds of interesting feedback.
No comment. How was that?
You're a smart man. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days, but thank you for doing this today. This has been fantastic. I hope I do get a chance to play with you sometime. That'd actually be fun. So I have to blow the rust out of my harmonica. My wife hid it for about the first 15 years of our marriage, and I finally found it, and I play and annoy the dogs occasionally. But yeah, I did the same thing in college. I played at night because I figured it was a good way to get free beer. And that's about as far as my career progressed.
Well, I look forward to that, and I thank you for having me on the program. But also want to thank you for the way you bring joy to the state and enlightenment. It is what you do is a craft. It is truly a craft, and there are days when you can say in a space this big, or how you say it and what you say is absolutely brilliant. So thanks for what you do.
I appreciate that, and I have to admit, on a personal level, when I see what y'all are doing up there and all the different things that I do, I'm thinking, man, I need to figure out a way to be able to hook up with y'all and be able to learn a few things.
I think there's some music, some beer, and we can figure all this out.
We can make it happen. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Thanks. Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.